In 1080, the Rubenets rebelled against the Byzantine sovereignty, established control over their own territory, and began to expand their political base. Navigating the conflicting interests and aggressions of Byzantines, Seljuks, nearby Crusader states, and the emerging Ayyamid power in Egypt, as well as the internally divided Armenian nobility, the Rubenid Prince Levon II was recognized as king in 1198, accepting crowns from the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV and the Byzantine Emperor Alexis III the Angelus. It is believed that there was a gospel created specifically for the royal ceremony of coronation, which took place on the 6th of January 1198 in the Cathedral of Tarson. We know from the basis of the colophon of the Gospel, which is known today as the Skevra Gospel or the Lviv Gospel, that it was the same Gospel used for the important event. The Gospel is written in Yergatagir on a beautiful parchment both by priest Stepanos in the island of Cyprus and illustrated by the artist Grigor in 1197. The Gospel consists of luxurious canon tables, 4 portraits of evangelists, title pages, and narration scenes on the margins.
To continue Christina's words, the manuscript was stored in Lviv in the collection of Armenian Catholic Archiepiscopate up to 1941, and that's where the name Lviv Gospel came from. The luxuriously illustrated Gospel has attracted the attention of researchers before the Second World War. During his stay in Lviv, it was mentioned by various researchers, the most important of which was by Father Nerses Aghinan. It contained black and white reproduction of a number of his miniatures, and for many decades remained the main source concerning the manuscript. Skevra Gospel disappeared for a long time after the Second World War. Even Sirapi Nersen in her last book considered it as a lost one. In 1993, by a lucky coincidence, it was found in Gniezno in Poland. From 1997, March 11 to July 6, it was presented in Metropolitan Museum in the exhibition of the Gloria Byzantium. In 1997, the Gospel was restored in the Museum of Gutenberg. The miniatures were well preserved, though some of the pigments of miniatures were reprinted on the opposite page. The Gospel is a medium size. Before the 16th century, the size of a Gospel was 300 on 240 millimeters, and after that 290 on 250 millimeters. Today, this luxurious example of early Solution miniature painting is kept in Warsaw Public Library in Poland. Its actual binding is most probably the work of Western European master, which has replaced the once sumptuous golden binding of this Royal Commission, which unfortunately hasn't come down to us.
The Lviv Gospel is decorated with one of the most luxurious and beautiful canon tables, which are translated into Armenian as Khorans. Overall, there are 9 canon tables in the Gospel. There are dominating red, blue, and yellowish colors in these images. The canon tables include beautifully depicted floral and faunal features and creatures, such as different peacocks, dragons, sirens, and other fantastic birds. All these floral and faunal creatures and patterns are exhibited in very bright and gorgeous colors. On every headpiece of the canon tables there are standing two gorgeous peacocks and other crowned birds. In the first canon table we can see that the 2 peacocks which are standing on the headpiece are holding a golden cross, while in the other ones they are standing between a jar or a fountain which is filled with the water. In the first and second canon tables, which are representing the letter from Eusebius to Carpianus, we can see mushroom-like trees from both sides of the headpieces, and human-headed sirens and horned birds with coiled tails that are standing on them. Now we would like to speak more thoroughly about these fantastic creatures such as griffins and dragons. The viewers can immediately observe the beauty of these winged griffins, dragons and sirens with long tails, which Alexander will represent to you more thoroughly.
A scene connected with these fantastic creatures and animals is a winged dragon with a snake's body facing a bird. It can be noticed in the headpieces of 2 canon tables. They contain the letter of Eusebius. These creatures in the headpieces are very unusual for Armenian miniature painting. The Lviv Gospel also shows a dragon-tailed regarded bird as a marginal ornament in the 8th canon table. The 4th and the 5th canon tables also include a pair of eagles eating grapes on the top of the 3 columns, while the 6th and the 7th canon tables are decorated with the pairs of lions and wolves masks. At the top of the 5th canon set table, we can see a duck-like creature drinking water from a lion-headed fountain. We observe similar decorations in the canon tables of the Gospels illustrated at the end of the 12th century and at the beginning of the 13th century in Skevra, which no longer appear in the miniatures of Cilician manuscripts of the later period.
All of the portraits of evangelists in the Lviv Gospel have a golden background, including the one of Matthew. The full-page illustration pictures Matthew the evangelist individually. The illustration has a blue frame with ornaments. Noticeably, the illustration includes quite many details. Matthew is sitting on a throne which has beautiful detailed engravings. Under his feet, Matthew has a red rug, and in front of him, there are the desk, working tools, and the book holder in the form of a fish. As it is shown in details, we can see that in the desk's drawer there are several tools, jugs, a metallic pen, and an inkwell. Although Matthew's face is distorted, his face features are slightly visible. There are no strict face lines, and the face appearance is pretty simple. At the very top part of the miniature, there is a typical Armenian blossomed cross with decorations. Next to the cross, there are 2 birds and heads of wolf-like creature biting the birds' tails. The headpiece of the title page is rich with ornaments applied of a golden background. Uniquely, here we have Christ Emmanuel, young Jesus Christ with no beard. He has a cruciform halo, as is typical only to Jesus, and blesses with his right hand. In the tympanum of the headpiece there is a trefoil arch, inside of which we see an inscription in both Greek and Armenian mentioning Matthew's Gospel. Angel is forming the initial letter G as Matthew's symbol. The angel is pictured over a jug, holding a book in his hand, and cross holding his wing to form the letter G. On the right of Matthew's title page, the ancestors of Christ are depicted in a form of a marginal floral decorations. It represents Christ Emmanuel at the top and 4 of his ancestors below: King David, Prophet Isaiah, Prophet Elijah, and Moses. The portraits are in round frames which have minor decorations in between them. At the top of the column there is an equal winged cross. This marginal representing the genealogical tree of Christ will later turn into the tree of Jesse, the iconography of which was so popular in Cilician miniatures of post-Muslim period.
Mark the Apostle, or simply Saint Mark, is depicted sitting in front of the Gospel that he is writing, part of it open while the other part is in his left hand. In front of him we can see the table on which various tools are placed, hinting that he was in the process of creating the manuscript. His clothes have interestingly rich colors, a long violet tunic with a burgundy robe over it. His shoes are not really visible, but it's easy to guess that they're sandals, because we can see the straps which go over his feet. Saint Mark is seated on a throne-like chair, which seems to be made out of wood, with lavishly decorated legs, a red cushion for a seat, and a white fabric going down the back of the chair. His legs rest on a red cushion as well. Overall, this particular painting has a very rich and saturated color scheme, and is generally darker than the other 3 portraits. While this portrait is simple enough, that is not the case for the title page. Just like the other title pages, The artist has included a lot of elements which might not be that obvious at the first glance. The first letter, S, is formed by a figure of Jesus Christ standing on the back of a winged lion. The lion's left wing is pointed straight upwards, while its right wing is twisted around its body. The wings might make us believe that this human figure is an angel, however, it's Jesus Christ. It's obvious due to his halo, which has a cross inside of it. It's important to mention that Jesus Christ is portrayed in iconography known as Christ Emmanuel. On both its sides, we can see some other animals, which are very interesting examples of portraying such fabulous beasts. The one on the left is clearly a mythological animal. It is green, and upon closer inspection appears to have scales, just like a snake, fish, or lizard. Thus, it is safe to say that this animal is a dragon, as both the snake and the lizard were associated with dragons. On the right side, we can see two animals fighting. The animal at the top seems to be a griffin, with the body of a lion, combined with hands and a head of an eagle. The animal at the bottom appears to be a simple lion. This fight between a griffin and a lion was popular before Hitler Military as well, and this battle is a prime example of artistic traditions that the miniaturists of Cilicia, 20th, 13th centuries inherited from miniaturists of the 11th century.
Luke the Evangelist is representing in the process of writing while an open scroll hangs in front of him.
It seems like Saint Luke is in emotion as he is achieving an ink to deepen his pen in it. In front of him is an oriental table with beautiful patterns on which are some tools, making it evident that he was in the act of making a manuscript. He is sitting on an extensive chair wearing bright colored clothing, and Saint Luke is shown bearded with a tonsure on his head.
The title page of the Gospel of Luke is filled with intricate and unique details. The artist has added several things which may not be evident at the first look like the previous title pages.
The initial Armenian letter K is depicted as a winged ox, the symbol of Evangelist Luke. The column of the initial is conveyed by the elongated body of the ox, while the horizontal bar is constituted by the wings pointing in different directions. The headpiece of Luke's title page is made up of double P-shaped bands, connected by an intricate cross and adorned with fantastic dragon-tailed birds. In the outer right margin, there is a huge cross, decorated with vivid and beautiful ornaments.
Coming to the last evangelist, which is John. John is portrayed with his disciple Prochorus, who is represented and depicted as the scribe of John.
Prochorus is sitting at the lower corner of the illustration, holding a quill and parchment, possibly writing what John was speaking, while John is standing in front of him and is portrayed in a bigger size to show the hierarchy. On the top corner of the miniature, God's right hand is shown pointing towards John.
The title page of John holds intricate detailing and uniqueness. The Armenian letter E is represented as the initial letter of the Gospel of John.
In the Lviv Gospels, Grigor Milgeti depicts the letter as a belt with the floral embellishments that stretches from top to the bottom of the page. On top of the initial, we see an eagle, which is the symbol of John the Evangelist. Under the eagle, a half figure of John appears, carrying the gospel in his hands. The letter's tail is embellished with a human head and a bouquet of flowers emerging from his mouth. Moreover, the lion's mask connect the top and lower portions of the initial. And lastly, at the lower part of the letter, there is again an animal, possibly a lion, laying in a bent position.
Next to the initial, the headpiece of the title page is represented in the form of the Latin letter P.
It is illuminated, including amazing details and ornaments in the same color scheme, mainly red, blue, and gold. On top of the headpiece, various symbols are depicted. First of all, in the middle there is a medallion, which includes inside of it the image of a lamb holding a cross. This lamp has a cruciform halo, which was used only in depictions of Jesus Christ. This depiction of the lamb inside of a medallion resembles the coat of arms of the Cilician kingdom, which is also on the coin of the King Levon I. Next to the both sides of the lamb, we see two different images. On the left side, a pelican, which is also a symbol of Christ, since in order to rescue his nestling, the pelican tears off his breast and permits them to drink from it, just as Christ sacrificed himself for mankind. The pelican is depicted gripping a snake in his mouth, which represents sinful souls on their path to hell. However, on the right side of the lamb, there is a different scene illuminated. An eagle is seen here clutching an animal that resembles a donkey or a deer to represent the salvation of righteous souls. The eagle capturing the deer resembles the Bagratite's coat of arms, which also featured an eagle seizing a lamb or a sheep, which was afterwards adopted by the Orbelian and Zaccharid rulers. In the context of a coat of arms, it is suggested that the monarchs would tear anybody who dared to threaten their existence away, much as an eagle would tear a sheep away. In fact, the whole group of animals represented in the top of the headpiece makes an allusion to the scene of harrowing of hell, where the sinful and rightful souls are represented on both sides of Jesus, who is holding a huge cross.
Eventually, next to the headpiece, a beautiful cross with extraordinary details is embodied.
The continuation of the cross holds animals and ornaments merged together, creating a stunning totem.
The Skevra Lviv Gospel harbors many intricate and important illustrations in its pages. One of the most unique marginals is the one depicting the ancestor mother as a character enveloped in the branches of a tree, seemingly climbing it while grabbing a bunch of branches on both sides. According to scholars, it is believed to symbolize a pagan goddess that is a protector of families from all that is evil. Hints like this of pagan remains in Christian culture are due to the fact to make the transition between the two religions a smoother and peaceful process. Furthermore, the marginal illustration known as the Incredulity of Thomas in the Lviv Gospel was the first depiction of this topic in Armenian art. The artist, Grigor Milichetsy, made it a point to depict Christ's glory by emphasizing the firmness of his grip on Thomas's hand. In Byzantine and European versions, it's common to see a simple raised hand of Christ as a means of making the wound visible. However, Milichetsy was one of the very few to illustrate Christ bringing Thomas's hand to the wound. Moreover, the marginal portrayal of the betrayal of Judas in the Lviv Gospel depicts the guilty Judas approaching Jesus from the right in an apologetic manner, enveloping Christ in his arms. As before, with the grand intent of artistically expressing the magnificence of Jesus, Milichetsy illustrated him substantially taller and with grand and strong posture, in comparison to the meek Judas by his side. We see a beautiful image of Christ Emmanuel in a circular medallion that is shown on the wings of a dove as a marginal illustration. We also have the wedding in Cana represented through the figures of Jesus and Mary with 3 jugs placed in front of them.